everyone, welcome to SPLA Man Presents. This is SPLA Man. How many times in our lives have we said, I wish I would have done something differently? I wish, like as an example, Facebook, right? Or Meta, whatever you want to call it. I bought the stock at $35 a share when it went to IPO. $35. I look today and I sold it at $37. Big win. I look at it today, it's at $539 a share. Oh boy. Anyways, how many times do we say I wish, right? So when it comes time for your investments, whether it's buying an IPO for Meta or buying something for your organization, right? You make these investments in things. And the last thing you want to do is look back and say, I wish I would have done X, Y, and Z differently. And a lot of times when you look at maybe your licensing landscape, or maybe it's just your data center in general, we say, okay, well, I made the investments in my data center. I made the investments in all the hardware, or maybe I partnered with somebody to outsource that. I made the investment in my employees. I made the investment in winning new customers. But what am I doing to actually hold on to those customers? Or what am I doing to ensure what I'm doing is even accurate or even works? If you look at today's licensing landscape, it's ever changing. There's so many different outsourcing scenarios now. And I mentioned all these in previous videos: flexible virtualization, CSP hoster, the list goes on and on. But what are you doing now to ensure accuracy? What are you doing now to ensure that your customers are doing things correctly? You know, whether it's an audit or maybe it's just the way you bill your customers, at the end of the day, don't you want to make sure it's right? So do me a favor, make the investments in not only maybe learning about these new licensing rules, but also making the investments in keeping track of what you're doing from a licensing perspective, because things can get out of whack pretty quickly. You know, an audit is an unbudgeted expense. You know what's also unbudgeted? Let's say you're going through an acquisition. I worked with a customer many years ago who acquired another service provider. He paid $2 million for that service provider, right? It turns out that other service provider was way out of whack in licensing and owed $5 million in licensing fees. So that $2 million acquisition turned into a $7 million acquisition. So make your right investment choices, right? Like, don't follow me with Meta in the stock market, but follow me when it comes to licensing advice. And do yourself a favor. I talk to service providers every single day. And so many of them say, I wish I would have done something differently. Because look, at the end of the day, like I said, licensing is very complex. And it's our job not only just to educate you and coach you, but it's also a job to make sure you're doing it correctly long term and help you plan long term. Because one thing that's consistent with Microsoft or any publisher is change. So we have to stay on top of those changes. And the way you do that is you can join our community at community.octopus.cloud. I would also encourage you to reach out to one of our sales reps to maybe go through your different licensing options on how to track these licenses on a month-over-month basis. Whether you're using CSP, the dreaded word SPLA, or whether you use AWS or Azure, it really doesn't matter. Like I said at the beginning of this conversation, you just want to make sure you're doing it right. So are you making the right investments? Anyways, guys, that's food for thought. That's all I got for you today, but stay safe and we'll talk to you soon.